Today, I'm going to teach you how to treat wastewater naturally in different scales. We're going to start at looking at on a smaller scale for those of you who just want to treat wastewater in your home, for example. The best and easiest solution, based on our experience, is to use botanical planters. Botanical planters is a system that basically mimics the natural world to treat wastewater. So, as you might know, there are two types of wastewater that our buildings produce. We have gray water, which is the water that comes out of our showers and sinks. So every time you take a shower or you use the sink, the water that goes out of that is called gray water. Then we have black water. And black water is what comes out of your toilet. When you are using your toilet, that's you on your toilet, you are producing black water. So there's different way of treating these. What we like to do in our buildings, because gray water is very simple to treat, we treat it inside of the buildings. So inside our buildings, we create a greenhouse zone where we are producing fruits and vegetables. So the way the gray water is treated is that the shower water and the sink water with gravity is designed to go to a botanical planter, which is a big planter which is integrated into a greenhouse. This planter is lined with a liner that contains the water. So this is normally a material that is called EPDM. This is the material we like to use, but you can use any kind of pond liner. I will put EPDM here, which is one type of liner, which has a very good quality. And now your botanical planter is contained. The water cannot get outside. And then what we do is that in the very bottom of the planter, we place bigger rocks. And on top of that, we do a layer of gravel, which is smaller size of rock. And so this is the lower part of the botanical planter has this. And this is because to allow the water to flow, because water can flow between rocks and gravel. And then on top of that, we have a geotextile. It's basically a textile that allows the water to go between, but it separates it from different layers, because on top of that, we put a layer of sand. So we have a layer of sand, very, very little, just a few inches or just a few centimeters of sand. And then on top of that, we go and we put a layer of topsoil, which is what the plants will grow in. So here we put the topsoil, the nice, rich, nutrient soil that the plants will be planted in. Now, what happens is that we choose plants that are well known to consume a lot of water. So, for example, banana trees are well known to consume a lot of water. So when you plant a banana tree, what's going to happen is that with time, the roots of the banana tree is going to understand where the water is, because your gray water that you just had a shower in goes into the bottom layer. And in this bottom layer, the water flows in this direction. Water comes in here, and it's going to flow from one point to another point. Because what we do is that this part of your planter has a deeper depth than this part. So that allows with gravity the water to move naturally. And this is something you want to have in mind in general when you're designing wastewater systems or water systems. Use gravity. Gravity is from nature and it allows to basically move water in a natural way so you don't rely on pumps. So what happens with time is that plants are very smart. Their roots are looking for water. So they're gonna start and growing their roots down into this layer of gravel. And every time you take a shower, that water passes through here and your banana trees or fig trees or whatever trees you plant in there, they start consuming this water. When they consume this water, there's a natural biological treatment system happening. So what it does, it creates oxygen, and it's basically an environment, an aerobic environment, where the oxygen, together with the bacteria inside of this layer, start basically breaking down that gray water and treating it. So by the end, when the gray water reaches the last section, here, it's pretty much clean. Now, this, we normally have it integrated inside the building, or it can also be an external part of your building. And the thing is that the black water works with a similar system, but we normally place it outside the building to avoid humans having any direct contact with the black water. Because what we do in the black water system is that we plant shrubs and plants that are not edible. So we use the black water to basically generate ecosystems outside, but the whole botanical planter, all the different layers are built exactly the same way. Okay? So this is what we call a botanical planter. And we use it in a way that we separate gray and black water. Okay? So now, let me show you the next level. So this is for your house. The next level is constructed wetland. Constructed wetland is a system that has been around since 1950s. So it's very well known around the world. There's been constructed wetland built. But the challenge with constructed wetland is that they take a lot of space. So mostly they've been just used in urban areas where there is a lot of landscape. Now, the way they work is that you have black water and gray water can actually be completely mixed. So there's no need to separate it because a constructed wetland can handle it. A constructed wetland is basically a mimic of a natural wetland. A wetland is a part of our ecosystem that helps to treat water in the natural world. So the way a wetland works is that it's basically a basin, a big, in the landscape, it's basically a big basin that you basically, it's like building a pond to simplify it. So you dig out, you make a big hole. And with this system, you can basically treat the wastewater for a whole city, for a whole village or a community. And so it's very similar to a botanical planter. It has a pond liner, just like the botanical planter do. You can use any kind of pond liner that can contain the water. So it's very important to contain the water so it doesn't mix it doesn't sip out into the natural world before it's treated. So what we do here is there is basically only rocks and gravel in this. We don't put any soil or anything. So here we place a lot of rocks in the system, and then we fill the whole thing with basically gravel. So, and the reason we do that is because we want to contain water in here, right? So we go all the way to the surface, and this is all filled with gravel. Now, what happens is that the wastewater comes into the system, and in the system here, we plant plants, and these have to be specific reed plants. So these are you cannot plant whatever you want here. You have to basically mimic the kind of plants that thrive in wetlands, because see, this is not, there's no soil here. This is always a humid environment. So same thing here, like the botanical planter, what happens is that all these reeds plants, what they do is that their roots all start going down where the water is. So there's all the roots, there's a whole root system established here very quickly. These plants, they grow just within a couple of 3 weeks, they grow up to 1 meter, and then they just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, what's very interesting with this system is that it has to be outside. This you cannot do inside in a greenhouse. With time, these plants, they grow very tall, right? They grow very, very tall. And the way they work is that with the wind, when the wind is blowing, they basically bring air into the system. So you have the wind blowing. What happens is that when the plant is moving like this with the wind, it's bringing oxygen into the system. So the root starts moving. The whole thing is just moving thanks to the wind, and it brings in air into the system. And when you have air coming into the system together with the roots and the bacteria living in this environment, they start breaking down the solids into liquids. And that way, the wastewater can be treated, and in the end of the cycle, you basically can recapture this water, and you can store it in a water tank, and then you can reuse it to irrigate your landscape, for example. Now, there's much more details that goes into this system. I'm just simplifying it for you now. There's septic tanks that goes in that as a primary treatment system before it goes to the wastewater treatment system. Okay, so this is constructed wetlands. And then lastly, I just want to show you as well about the urban wetlands, because thanks to technology, we can now use this system in urban environments. So what we've done is that we've combined basically technology and nature-based solutions to make it work. Because in urban areas, we produce a lot of wastewater, and it's important for us that we can treat it as well. So if we take a building, for example, a high-rise building, and we have several floors in the city, and we also have, like most city buildings have, we have an underground as well. Could be a garage or just a basement. And then in the top, we have the roof. So what we do in the urban environments is that from all the showers and the toilets that exist, from all the WCs and the showers, we distribute all the wastewater from those rooms down to the basement. Now, you can do this on existing buildings, but you can also do it in new development. It's much more easier to do it on new development, but If you're renovating an old high-rise building, it's very easy to implement this. So you basically take the wastewater from all these buildings, from all the floors, no? And you don't necessarily need to separate it because we're using a constructed wetland. And then so in the basement, what we have is that we have a conventional septic tank. So a conventional septic tank has normally 2 chambers. In the first chamber, you have an area where the solids are transformed into liquid. So in the second chamber, it's filled with liquid, and in the first chamber, it's solid. There's an anaerobic process here, meaning it's an environment that there's no air. So there's certain bacteria that thrive in this environment, and what they do is they start eating the solids. And while they're eating the solids, they produce liquid. So then this liquid goes into the second chamber. Now, what we do is that we create a green roof on the top. So in urban environments now, a lot of people are aiming at making green buildings. They build a green roof. Now, I love green roofs, but there is one fact to have in mind with green roofs is that they consume a lot of water. So what we do instead for our clients is that we help them to create a green roof that actually doesn't consume water. Because what we do is we transform that green roof into an urban wetland. So just like I talked about the constructed wetland, we have a similar system here where we have gravel, or it can also be lighter weight materials depending on the roof structure, how much weight it can take. We can also use lightweight materials. So then the water from the septic tank, we pump it up into the roof and we treat it on the roof. So in the end of the system, once the water goes through the system, we basically recollect regenerated water, water that you can reuse to flush the toilets. So the water coming out of here can be reused to flush the toilets of all the rooms. And if you do that, you're already reducing the water consumption by 30%. You can reduce it. But this water is also has the right conditions to be reused to generate ecosystems. So you can basically create in your landscape, you can use that water to irrigate your gardens. And if you have a lot of landscaping in your environment, you can reduce your water consumption with up to 75%. And the trick, the reason we're able to do this and not having to need so much space for the urban wetlands is that we have an integrated technology inside of here where we pump in air to the system. When we pump in air to the system, we don't rely on the plants bringing the air into the system. And that way we can reduce the space that it's required. And simply with the roof of the building, we can treat all the wastewater of the building and basically help our environments and not consume water from the environment and not throw out wastewater and just treat everything locally. So this is just a circular way of treating wastewater. If you find this interesting and you want to learn more about how to treat the wastewater, what are the different details, construction details, then make sure that you join our Bioautonomy Online Academy, where we will teach you everything in detail. And make sure to watch our other videos to learn more about nature-based architecture.